you know, they say Jadon Sancho, but to me, definitely there's a position that's been a real problem over the years. No, Juan Mata's played there for a number of years. We've seen Daniel James come in there. We've seen Mason Greenwood, Rashford out there. You know, Paul Pogba's played out there. Van der Beek's played out there. So many players have tried to fill that position since, I suppose, Antonio Valencia stopped playing there. It's been a problem position for many years.
What's up, guys? I'm back here with another video. Please like, subscribe and share. Thank you.
I don't see this as a massive hindrance in terms of their mentality. It'd just be getting the right food in their bodies.
I think everyone's made the point here this afternoon on this ledge and down below as well today that fans have a right to voice their protests wherever they see fit. Gary, let me bring you back in on one point though, just to clarify. Protest is one thing. What we don't want to see is fans storming stadiums, do we?
No, and like I say, you know, was it Roy that mentioned about, or Graham mentioned they just walked in. We don't know how they got into the stadium. There were talks today about, obviously, all week about disruption of the game.
In terms of, you know, the Champions League next season, so, you know, will Jurgen Klopp be happy with his players just sitting around waiting around in a hotel, not sure when they can eat to prepare for the game as well? So I think there will have to become a point where a decision has to be made.
It must be tough, Roy, mustn't it, for everybody to keep their focus involved in this game today?
Yeah, it would be difficult. Gary makes the point there about the England game being obviously you put back 24 hours, but the pitch was unplayable. You know, the pitch here is perfect. Obviously, if we can get the players and the staff here safely, I still think the players' mindset would be to play a game. The only incident I had as a player when I was at Nottingham Forest, we played Spurs and it was a bomb scare and it was delayed 4 or 5 hours. But I remember we all still wanted to play the game, and we did play the game and went ahead. And players now, I think players are pretty switched on. They're clever. They're at the hotel. Gary's on about the food there. I'm pretty sure the hotel can get some more food for them, you know, obviously, but if it means they're having another pre-match, that means the game will have to be back another couple of hours. I think the mindset of the players, I know what I'd be thinking. I'd be thinking, let's get on with this game if we can today, if they obviously guarantee their safety.
What about that? That's the big question, isn't it, Graham, the safety?
In what respect?
Safety of everybody here.
Yeah, well, I think we heard a stadium announcer say the stadium's now safe.
We thought it was earlier, didn't we?
Yeah, well, it's bizarre. They knew the people were outside, and they just, hundreds of them just walked straight in. There was no resistance offered by the stewards, and maybe correctly so. But they just seemed walking through open doors. For the players, it won't be an issue. I think it's again, maybe Man U would want more than Liverpool at this time. The other team coming in with a bit of form, big win in midweek, sitting second in the league, and they'll see Liverpool is maybe a wee bit vulnerable at this time. So I think Man United would want it on more than Liverpool would.
Talking and moving on. That's not to say it's right or wrong, but like you say, we'll see what happens tomorrow, whether there have been arrests or whether there have been trouble outside that we've not seen. But in terms of obviously the fact that they were on the pitch, I mean, it was expected all week that there was going to potentially be a disruption to this match. I don't think it's something that's come unexpected or shouldn't have come unexpected.
And Jamie, just to add,
The game gets played at some stage, because I mean, in terms of the Champions League, it's not just Liverpool, it's other clubs that this fixture basically affects. I mean, I'm sure West Ham, Leicester, Chelsea supporters will be watching this game, they're hoping Liverpool get beat. You know, so there's a lot riding on this year fixture for a lot of clubs. So basically, if they can get this game played, I think we all want that to happen tonight. But as I said before, you think about the players or maybe the manager, coaching staff situation as well. So yeah, it is imperative then from a Liverpool point of view that, you know, they wanted to come here today and get 3 points. But there's a lot more teams involved in this than Liverpool, and that's why there's a lot more ride on this, and that's why I think the Premier League would be very nervous and almost panicking that they have to somehow get this game played tonight, or, as Gary mentioned before, tomorrow, because you just don't see where it actually fits into the calendar. Because, as I said, we're nearly at the end of the season. United are still in Europe. There's lots of games to fill in even now.
Years. Just be clever. You are really good at doing that side of the club. You do it really well. You're brilliant at the commercial side, the selling the side of the club, and that's been important in terms of Manchester United's revenues to be able to spend the money. But on the other side, put people in charge there that are best in class, that can make sure that the football side of the club can communicate with the fans. They've lost the art of communication. You've got to bring people on a journey with you. So when obviously Roy was captain, he communicated with the fans. Sir Alex Ferguson communicated with the fans. They had people in the club who they knew understood the club, that loved the club. So they were okay with it to an extent, even though they weren't happy with the ownership. Since then, that balance has shifted, and Roy's mentioned tipping point, and that tipping point has come, I think, 2 weeks ago for everybody, including myself, whereby not only have they tried to obviously move that tipping point in this club, but they try to almost damage every other club as well, and I think that's the bit that I can't get my head around.
I know you talked, Gary, before about the fact that the Glazers wanted to rebuild trust, and you said that that couldn't be done because of almost too much water that has gone under the...
From being behind many times. Their away record's good, they're resilient, they're getting better. I actually think at this moment in time the club is moving up step by step. So in terms of what's happening at this moment in time, I get it. But behind the scenes though, Dave, what they did 2 weeks ago, honestly, I mean, and we have said it enough now, I don't need to say it again, it really bad, really bad.
And we talk about Man United or state of football. Because I think I'm sitting here, obviously not as a Man United supporter, but I pick up on what Gary's saying, what Roy's saying. You know, Fergie goes, David Gill goes, and I think from that point on, it was non-footballing people making big decisions about, you know, who came here, who didn't come here, and I think that's where a lot of the anger that we saw today, and obviously what happened 2 weeks ago or 10 days ago, I get that. And I support that. But I think a lot of Man United anger comes from where they are right now. They've spent over £1 billion, a 719 or 14 million pound net spend. That's still a lot of money for the Glazers to put up. But I come back to it, I think it's been non-footballing people who've been making big decisions here about Man United, and they've got a lot of it wrong. That's why they're not the dominant force, and I think that's where a lot of frustrations, why they're aimed at the Glazers, because they're not sitting top of the league and in the semi-finals of the Champions League right now. And I fully get you know, these guys turning up, complaining about the Super League they tried to form. But I think a lot of it, an equal amount, is because of where United are right now.
And those people outside and some who are inside today might tell us that the reason they are protecting against the Glazers is because they've taken so much money out of the football club from an early stage as well.
What do you want? You know, Roy's been a manager. What do you want from your board, your owners, your chairman, president? You want them to give you funds to go out and buy better players, more better players. Well, I think every manager that's been here has had that.
Well, what's your take on it, Mike? Manchester City always looking rosy with the ownership until a couple of weeks ago.
No, it's difficult. I'm in a difficult situation when it comes to Manchester City, because not all I'm ambassador. You know, I said 2 weeks ago, I said what they did was a disgrace. On the other hand, in terms of what's gone on behind the scenes has been inspirational with the women's team, the way they've redeveloped the Manchester, all the youth teams. So I can't sit here and criticise the Manchester City owners. I can't do that, because they've been incredible without investment. We wouldn't have won the Premier League. We wouldn't be in the semi-final. It's not cheating. It's using your body.
Forget we're talking about
we're talking about a modern day game. He's adapted to the modern day game, and that's how he buys a foul.
But, see, you're a young man with ambassadorial roles all over the place. And
Gary was an ambassador, by the way. Don't let him get away with it. I'm not the only ambassador here, if we're going down that road.
And he confirmed he took a cheque, didn't he?
Yes, it was cash, wasn't it? What's he talking about?
I firmly believe that the game is in danger unless it's stamped out. And the only people that can stamp it out are the referees. We saw Dean again in that game at Arsenal. That's not sending off. And players are going to ground, and because there's no crowd, you can hear them screaming. This is how I see it. Someone gets fouled. He goes down with a scream. All his teammates raise their hands and scream. Well, the referee thinks initially that wasn't that bad, but because everyone else is screaming, he panics. And because he doesn't really understand the game in that respect, he knows the rule book from A to Z, every bit.
It's not VAR.
And then it goes, let me finish, then it goes to VAR, and the referees at Stockley Park, they get it wrong because they don't understand it. VAR, there's nothing wrong with VAR. It's the people's interpretation who look at VAR, and the referees are not good enough. And let me finish that. I'm hogging it a bit, but I tell you what they have to do. They have to say to this group of referees, your time's up. Whether it's a year or 2 years, you're on notice. And we're going to get professionals who've had to finish early, or professionals who want to be referees, and get proper people refereeing the game. Because if you don't, you're going to lose this league to another league, and that'll be the most attractive league in world football, and that's where all the money will go.
Do you remember my original question? Do you remember my question? How do Manchester United become title challengers? That was the question.
We
went off
talk,
topic.
aren't we?
Let me go to Jamie Carragher on Jack Grealish, because I know he'll have a perspective on that, about being the most fouled player and whether he would... fit in here at Old Trafford. What do you think, Jamie?
I don't think he'd fit in here at Old Trafford just because of the players that they've got, not as talent. I mean, they've already got Pogba playing on that left now, Fernandes, Rashford likes to play on that side, so I don't think he's a must for Manchester United. I think he's definitely got the quality. I get what Graham's saying, but he was completely different midfield player to Jack Grealish. He was a central midfield player who played two-touch and moved it on quickly. I think Jack Grealish is a player who likes to run with the ball.
We've always had brilliant centre-back pairings that have been outstanding and at the top of the game. So for me, centre-back, centre-forward, right-wing, there's where I'd go if I was going in the summer of 3 players.
We'll pick this conversation up in a few minutes' time. I think others want to have their say as well. But let's see if we can bring you a development here on this game at Old Trafford this afternoon. Remember, we're here because Manchester United were due to be taking on Liverpool.
Police cordon has pushed most of the protesters back onto the main road, so there's nothing now physically preventing the players from leaving the Lowry and entering the two-team coaches nowadays, of course, because of COVID restrictions. But it's still very much a waiting game. We still don't know whether or not the game's going to go ahead. We know that it's been delayed, not officially postponed as yet, and that's what the players will be doing. They'll be inside the hotel, as they have been for the whole of the afternoon, wondering what's going on. Are we going to get to play or aren't we? There's a similar situation at a hotel just a couple of miles away from here, where the Liverpool team are currently hunkered down, waiting to see what's going on. Previously here, there were several hundred fans on the steps here. They were letting off flares, chanting, voicing their displeasure at the Glazer ownership of Manchester United. It was reasonably peaceful. No arrests, as far as I'm aware, were made down here. But we're still waiting. That's right, yeah, the fans were dispersed from on the steps here a few hours ago. There's been nothing physically preventing the players from getting onto the coaches. There are police cordons in place around here, which would mean that the coaches should be able to exit this area reasonably safely and in order to get to Old Trafford. But the police here and at Old Trafford will obviously be speaking to each other. They'll be in conversations with the match referee as well, you would think, as to the security of the game, and they won't allow the game to go ahead if there's any personal security issues. So the situation at Old Trafford is what's determining the situation here at the moment. But as it stands, yep, you're right, there's nothing that's physically stopping the players from leaving the hotel and heading to the ground, other than potential security risks at the ground itself.
Fraser, thank you very much for the moment. So as yet, no official news on whether this game will go ahead. Remember, it was due to be starting at 4:30 this afternoon. We're obviously an hour after that point now, and still waiting for any news on whether it will go ahead, whether indeed the teams will leave their hotels this afternoon, and we will have football here this evening. Hopefully updates for you very soon on that, so we can only pick up on the conversation we were having before. A bit of a fantasy Premier League Manchester United selection for next season. We've signed Jack Grealish and Harry Kane, and
But Gary's got to give us names. Gary's talking about positions. Give us names.
All right, Gary.
Right winger, centre half.
Let's have a right winger, please, Gary, from you.
Who's your right
Gary,
winger?
where are you?
Sorry, hello.
Come on, Gary, we're on air.
Hello.
Roy would like to know a right winger for you for next season.
I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm not Manchester United's chief scout. You know, they say Jadon Sancho, but to me, definitely there's a position. It's been a real problem over the years. No, Juan Mata's played there for a number of years. We've seen Daniel James come in there. We've seen Mason Greenwood, Rashford out there. You know, Paul Pogba's played out there. Van der Beek's played out there. So many players have tried to fill that position since, I suppose, Antonio Valencia stopped playing there. It's been a problem position for many years.
But there's been a village idiot out there that could have cost someone their life today.
Make your point, Roy. Go back on that.
Yeah, no, there's idiots everywhere. Yeah, of course.
But we're not condoning that in any way.
Of course not. Of course, it's out of order. And again, we don't know the ins and outs of what's going on around Manchester today or maybe this evening. It's not over yet. No one's saying it's okay for supporters to do criminal damage or trespass. But there's also a lot of fans out there who've just had enough and who have been peaceful and who have turned up to protest against the owners of Manchester United. And we have to say to them, listen, you're standing up for your football club. And they have done it peacefully. Nobody's given anyone a thumbs up for throwing bottles or flares, of course not.
Well, let me go again to Gary Neville. Again, really, to hammer home that point, Gary, about the importance, if there is a need for protest, that it has to be peaceful and it has to be law-abiding.
I completely agree. I completely agree. I mean, there are people protesting in London today against the government trying to stop protests. But we have to allow protests, but there is always going to be potentially a flashpoint because there will be one or two people that just they might have had a drink, they might just be, to be fair, coming to antagonise, they might, to be fair, coming for ulterior motives other than what would be to protest, and that will always happen. I think Graham's pointing towards potentially something outside that means that this game's been called off that we don't know about. I suspect it's as simple as the fact that the Liverpool team bus would have had to have travelled through the streets of Manchester to get to this ground. And could they guarantee the safety of Jurgen Klopp and the Liverpool staff and the players, you know, with what could happen, potentially those few people that were in the mood to actually, to be fair, throw stuff. And I think the answer's got to be, you know, that would be me absolutely saying no. I think you have to make sure you err on the side of safety. The rivalry between these two clubs is huge. Let's be clear, but there is a line. There is a line. You know, me and Jamie have, and Roy and Graham have been part of this rivalry for 30 years, 40 years of our lives. We know how intense it is, but there is a line there. And the idea of, to be fair, the fans being violent against each other or each other's team bus, even though at times at Anfield we did have to sometimes go through that, that Roy too, is absolutely disgusted with what happened a couple of weeks ago, because it wasn't just attack on their own club. You know, you can actually harm yourself and deal with that as a family of Manchester United, and you can say, well, okay, but it's just the way in which they behave towards every other. They were leading this. Manchester United were leading this thing 2 weeks ago. They were leading it, as were Liverpool, and they really are the greatest football clubs in this country, the biggest football clubs in this country, and they carry the most responsibility for that and the accountability for that. So what has happened today? Yeah, it's because Manchester United fans, you know, don't like the owners and it's ignited them. But I do say what they tried to do weeks ago was something that was really dangerous for English football, and we shouldn't forget that.
But there's a possibility, Gary, that Manchester United fans broadly might not be happy with some of the things that have gone on today.
Sorry, Dave.
Some of the collective Manchester United fans might not be happy with the actions of, but those who have been inside the stadium, those who have caused criminal damage to people.
Dave, there might be some Manchester United fans who think that some of the fans here today have gone too far, but generally...
Yeah, Dave, I just want to mention something. I was establishment. Now, from when I was as a kid going how football supporters were treated on the back of certain situations. I think about my own city and the club I love right now, and how that was portrayed involved in on two obviously.
In the first place, Jamie, should they?
I know, Dave, but let's not forget what this is. This is against. I know, Dave, but let's not forget what this is. This is against this football club's ownership. You get a few idiots. I'm going back further since when I was a kid and how football fans were treated and how they were portrayed in the media, basically on the back of a few idiots. So let's get that right. A lot of Manchester United fans are here today because they're fuming basically how their football club is being run. Now, yeah, should they storm onto a pitch? Should someone throw a flare up there? No. But we're talking about thousands of people here today. And it's not just Manchester United fans. We saw Arsenal fans. We saw Chelsea fans trying to stop a game until Peter Cech come out and they dropped out the Super League. I'm sure Liverpool fans will do something similar. I said that on Monday Night Football. Liverpool fans got owners out previously. Now, you do it different ways. I've got Liverpool fans texting me right now saying, oh, we never went on the pitch.